Good morning, everyone. Welcome to UUCP's online worship service. I'm Amy McClendon, your worship associate this morning. Today, while our minister, Reverend Christine Dance, is away from our online pulpit, we are so very fortunate to have Reverend Christine Robinson with us. I look forward to introducing you to her in a moment. In this time when we are physically distant, it is so good to be together. We need each other. Welcome to our worship. Welcome home. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Phoenix strives to be a spiritual community for our time, focused on diverse theological perspectives, radical inclusion, and knowing that issues of justice and equity shape everything we do. With a special awareness for those who have been marginalized, we welcome all, of every race, class, ethnicity, immigration status, sexual orientation, gender identity, religious background, mental and physical ability and disability. We welcome your whole self and we welcome your family into our worship as we build a community of kindness and caring, courage and hope. Our opening words this morning are from DeRay McKesson. Hope is the belief that our tomorrows can be better than our todays. Hope is not magic, it is work. I invite you to grab a chalice or a candle from your home as we recite our covenant and light our chalice together. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to share our strength in fellowship, thus do we covenant. And now let me introduce our worship team. Get everybody up here on the screen. All right. So we have our music director, Benji Messer. Our Director of Children's Ministries, Katie Resendez. Our pianist, Mary Cota. Our Zoom guru today is Glenn Lockwood. And Vince Waldron is our chat chaplain. Our preacher this morning is the Reverend Christine Robinson, the recently retired senior minister from the First Unitarian Church in Albuquerque. Among her many ministry interests is a passion for good ministerial formation, which is how she met our Reverend Christine Dance. During her seminary years, the two Christines were a mentor-mentee pair. Reverend Robinson is the author of 3 books on small group ministry and 1 on Tao Te Ching. She is a knitter and a gardener, does some church consulting and ministry coaching, and during the pandemic has done a lot of virtual preaching and multi-generational online gaming. She is married to William and mother of a young adult son who lives in Illinois and works as an artist for a gaming company. We are so very fortunate to have Reverend Christine here with us this morning, sharing her wisdom and her presence with us on such short notice. Welcome, and thank you so much, Reverend Christine. So this morning, our chat is open. You can chat with everyone or just to our panelists running the service. Please feel free to say hi to everyone. And as always, we invite you to check in to UUCP on social media with the hashtag UUAnywhere. And now for a few announcements about the life of our community. All of these announcements and more can be found in our weekly online newsletter, Compass. You can sign up for Compass on our website at phoenixuu.org. We want to thank everyone who contributed so generously to our blanket and clothing drive for the Navajo Nation. We'll be sending a full truckload of winter clothing and blankets later this week. And if you're interested in becoming more involved, there's a link in Compass. Next Sunday after service, Reverend Dance will be hosting a Get to Know UUCP Zoom gathering immediately after service, and we hope you'll be able to join us. And please continue to follow Compass for more information on Adventure Tales, our storytelling fundraiser in January. We'll even have storytelling workshops in December to help you prepare. And finally, we are collecting our offering virtually, just like our service. This week is a Share the Plate week, and our recipient this month is the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, or UUSC. UUSC's mission is to advance human rights and social justice around the world, partner with those who confront unjust power structures, and mobilize to challenge oppressive policies. Their work is grounded in the belief that all people have inherent power and dignity. To contribute to UUSC, you can text UUCP to 73256. That information is in the chat. You can donate through our website, or you can send in an old-fashioned check. And now for more background, we have a very short video introduction from UUSC staff members.
UUSC is an 80-year-old international human rights organization grounded in the principles of Unitarian Universalism and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
UUSC partners with over 50 locally led grassroots organizations around the world to advance human rights.
We work with communities affected by natural disasters and humanitarian crises, including ethnic minorities facing a campaign of genocide in Burma.
We partner with First Indigenous peoples to advance their right to self-determination in systematically addressing the loss of their homes, their livelihoods, and their cultures due to the impacts of climate change.
And we support the right to safety, dignity, and justice for Central Americans in Central America, along the migration route, and in the United States.
We can only do this work because of the support of individuals and congregations like you. Please join us.
Good morning, everyone. Today's service is about hope. And so I want to sing something hopeful with y'all. It's The Tide is Rising by Rabbi Shoshana Friedman. I love the confidence in this song that we can meet the problems before us. Feel free to sing it with me. We'll put the lyrics in the chat. It goes like this. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. And the world is ready. The world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. And the task is mighty. The task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. And we need to sing in Spanish whenever we do these justice songs living in Arizona. And this one translates, so it's como la marea nos alzamos, like the sea we rise. Here we go. Oh, and then llegó la hora. This is the hour, this is the time de alzarnos, for us to rise. Here we go. Como la marea nos alzamos, como la marea nos alzamos, como la marea nos alzamos, llegó la hora de alzarnos, llegó la hora de alzarnos. The sun is shining, the sun is shining, and so are we. The sun is shining, and so are we. The sun is shining, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. One more time, the tide is rising, the tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. Thanks, everyone.
This is where we are called to be. Yeah. Good morning. My name is Katie Resendez, and I'm the Director of Children's Ministry here at UUC Phoenix. Being called to be somewhere and being peaceful where it is sounds so nice. And maybe for the past months, for pandemic time, we are learning how to be peaceful and strong and push and stay in the same place all at the same time. It's been amazing that we went through late spring and summer and fall through this and learned new ways to be a community and new ways to be ourselves and new ways to sit through things. But the meltdowns are coming. The meltdowns are coming, and that's okay. We can be ready for them, and we can do what we can to prevent them, but we know they're coming. Can you think of a holiday or a special day that you put so much anticipation in? It might be your birthday party. It might be, for some, Christmas morning. It might be picking up someone from the airport, that day that you think about and put all of these little things into and all of this excitement. And so as the day approaches, it feels like the day itself is bursting. And it's going to be so amazing and so good. For me, it was in the summer when my grandparents would drive up from Florida, and the day that they were going to arrive, feeling so excited and getting up in the morning and wanting to put on the perfect outfit and can't wait to see their huge old wood paneled station wagon drive up with all those watermelons piled in the back. And oh my gosh, it's going to be the best thing ever. And then they would get out of the car and they would be tired from driving. And yes, they would give us hugs. And yes, they would have gifts. And yes, there would be tons of watermelon. But all the stories that I had planned to show them, all the plays that I was going to put on in that very first day, didn't get to happen in that very first day because they were tired and it was already 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I was already tired from being so excited. And the meltdowns would happen. For folks who parent, for folks who have been in foster care or who have been foster parents, you know that holidays are especially hard. Holidays are where the meltdowns come, and not just meltdowns, but sabotage, that we put so much hope into how good things are going to be that our brains do this thing where they try to cope with the excitement and the expectation the excitement isn't going to happen by sabotaging the whole thing. I'm going to be pouty today, or things aren't perfect and so I'm upset, or it's never going to work out, or I never have it the way I want it, or everyone seems so happy and they're not paying attention to me. And there are explosions. And those days are hard, but it doesn't make them any less holidays, right? So what do? November, December, January. For a lot of us, there are very, very important annual holidays that happen. If we know the meltdowns are coming, we know we have so much expectation and hope in them. And we know that this year, it's not just the kiddos who are going to lean towards sabotage. It's all of us. All of us are carrying around these memories of huge Christmas gatherings, of eating cookies in the Johnson room, of huge bonfires with hundreds of people for solstice, whatever it might be, families together around the table for Thanksgiving. We're all going to have hope and excitement and expect disappointment. So, who knows what'll work? We don't have all the answers, but we have each other, and we can ask each other how we get through these times. And I absolutely encourage you, when you connect in coffee hour today, ask each other, how are you connecting? How are you thinking about the holidays? How are you making sure that they feel good? Here's my tip as a foster parent. One of the things that I would talk to my kiddos on about the night before a big holiday would be, what are the things we absolutely know will happen? Not the things we hope, not the things that we remember happening before, not the things that we saw another family do on TV, but what are the things we know are going to happen? Presents tomorrow, because someone might have a huge meltdown and maybe you don't get to presents. They'll get there someday, but maybe it doesn't happen that day. Pull way back and think, oh, tomorrow is, let's say it's solstice morning, and I have lots of expectations for that. But you know what? I don't know how it's going to go, but I do know the sun's going to come up and it's going to be solstice day. And it's going to be that shortest day of the year and the longest night. Or maybe it's Christmas and you say, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and I don't know how you're going to feel or if anyone's going to be able to come over. Maybe it's just you living alone and you have expectations around gifts and presents and people you normally visit. Got to pull back and say, okay, tomorrow will be Christmas morning anyway. I can still call people. What can I do? What are the things that feel good? Hanukkah, do you have that candle? Do you have that match? Can you light it for yourself? And in lighting it for yourself, can you light it for all of us? Pulling back and stepping back and remembering that the hope and the excitement and all of the things you feel about the holidays that are coming aren't necessarily because of how perfectly everything comes together, but because of what the holiday means for you and what the ritual means for you. This year, it's going to be all about taking that step back and saying, what do I need this day to mean for me? How can I fulfill that meaning without stressing myself out? And when it doesn't work out, how will I hold myself and love myself through my own meltdown? Because the meltdowns are coming, and it's okay. Because after the meltdowns, we figure out who we are, we look around, and we step forward again, and we move on, and we say, thank you so much for this holiday season, and we keep rolling forward. This week and in the coming weeks, it is so important that you remember how powerful you are, but also how connected you are. And that even if you don't feel it, you are very, very loved. And you have a community here at UUCP and in other places that you can reach out to. We've needed each other so much this past year. We're going to keep needing each other, and we're going to keep showing up for each other because we are so powerful and we are love.
Now is the time when we share the joys and sorrows of our community. Being together, it is good to share, to support one another, and to connect. I invite you to please write any joys or sorrows you wish to share with the community in the chat. Please put your name at the beginning so I can properly acknowledge it. And if you wish for it to be private and not to be shared, please put the word private at the beginning and send it to panelists so that I can hold it in my heart. Today, please share messages about you and your loved ones. I know there's a lot going on in our broader community and world, and I'll hold space for that now as we enter our personal joys and sorrows in the chat. Today, we are holding Reverend Christine Dance and her family in our thoughts and our hearts as she spends time with her family in Florida, and we send them all our love. Last week, we began to process together this year's election, and as Reverend Christine did last week, I want to acknowledge a blanket joy and sorrow and any other emotion you may be feeling as we've continued to watch our democracy in action at the local, state, and national levels. This week also marked the celebration of Diwali, the Hindu festival of light. Diwali celebrates the triumph of light over darkness, good over evil, knowledge over ignorance, and hope over despair. For all those in our congregation and our world celebrating Diwali, we recognize that celebrations may have looked different this year during the pandemic, a time which has reinforced the importance of this celebration of goodness and light during difficult times. And with day after day of record-breaking numbers of new COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations this week, numbers that I struggle to wrap my head around, we send light to all those impacted, all the individuals we've lost, all who love them, and to our medical professionals and frontline workers. And now I'll turn to the joys and the sorrows shared by our community. The Lifshitz family celebrates a joy that Dylan participated in an online national speech and debate tournament this weekend and placed first in Congress and second in impromptu speech. Congratulations. We'll keep an eye on the chat and see if there are any others that folks want to share here for a moment. Let's see, Janet Salmons shares, working on feelings of sadness because I miss my distant family of grandchildren, focusing on hope and connection, so this service is perfect. Janet, I think there are a lot of us feeling that way. Jenny shares a joy for the myriad birds who have found our newly installed bird feeders. They are a delight. Oh, and Karen Schultz shares an update about her mom. Her mom is recovering well from hip subregion, getting stronger every day. We are so happy to hear that, Karen. Oh, sorry, hip surgery. I had misread that. All right. So we know that there's a lot we're all holding in our hearts. We've got Joan Gale sharing a joy that her aunt and uncle are recovering from COVID-19. So very happy to hear that as well. So as we hold all that has been shared and all that remains in our hearts, Reverend Christine will now lead us in a time of meditation.
So I invite you to join me in this guided meditation. Start by checking your body. How's your posture? Where's your tension? In your shoulders? Your hands? Let's all just heave a big sigh. Ready? All together. Sigh, as you may know, is a reset signal to the brain. So wiggle around a little bit and get ready to settle in. As Amy mentioned, this is the season of Diwali, the Hindu festival of lights. There's a mythology that goes with the holiday. There's several, actually, depending on where your people are from. But many Hindus celebrate this holiday as a holiday of light. As one author said, Diwali comes on the darkest night of the lunar cycle and marks the triumph of good over evil, justice over tyranny, knowledge over ignorance. It reminds me, she wrote, that we can help one another get through the darkest times. Now, not all darkness is bad. Not all light is good. Too much of either is a problem. But these Hindu days celebrate the good things that light brings into our lives. And for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, it comes in the cycle of season when every day brings less light, the first of many holidays, to hold up the symbol of light as a gift of hope. So I invite you to picture a light in your mind, the kind of light that illumines and guides. A lamp in a window, perhaps. A candle in a pumpkin. A campfire in a dark forest. The last line of orange in a sunset, or the first glimmers of dawn. The moon rising over the mountains. A chalice, the one you have in front of you, perhaps, or maybe the one you remember in your sanctuary. Picture a light in your mind's eye. Breathe with me for a few minutes as you picture your light shining in a difficult time. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. This light is always there for you in your imagination. It's good to practice visualizing it. Breathing. And now gently put your light aside or set it aside in your mind. Sit, if you can, in the restful darkness. Breathing. And then return to this company of travelers through all the days and nights of our life together.
Earlier this week, I was texting with my friend Grace, who I met here at UUCP, about the positive results from the Pfizer coronavirus vaccine trial. Grace sent me a link to an article about the vaccine with the note, "Potential good news." We chatted back and forth a bit, and what's striking to me is how guarded we were about this seemingly important development. We both admitted that we're wary of feeling false hope, and we acknowledged an element of self-preservation after living through and in this time. This would not have been my natural response to this type of news a year ago. My response would have had several exclamation points and probably a few emojis. I miss that version of myself, and yet I don't think I fully want her back. My version of hope back then wasn't always grounded fully in reality, and I think you need both. I will say that my glimmer of hope for our country and our world is a little stronger right now, but it's still a glimmer and one that I need to tend to through action. During the week of the election, I saw a social media post from Brittany Packnett Cunningham, a Black activist, writer, and educator, about disciplined hope. She defines disciplined hope as, quote, "an unvarnished view of reality, learning the rigorous historic lessons of victories in the face of the seemingly impossible, bravely and radically imagining what justice looks like, and choosing to fight for the future instead of give up," end quote. As I think about the world I want to live in, it's going to require this version of hope, an active hope that doesn't shy away from the truth, but boldly re-envisions a path forward. A hope that's centered in justice, draws on the lessons of those who have gone before us, and is tended to in community. I am so grateful to be tending to my glimmer of hope in community with all of you. Our next song was recorded at a concert in February in St. Paul, Minnesota, put on by the Vocal Point Choir and the hip hop band Flowbots. As they teach it, please feel free to sing along.
So we're going to start easy. I don't believe that the world we see right now is the only world that is possible. I don't believe that the state of things right now is the only state of things that is possible. I think there is another world that is possible that we could build together. Do you believe that? If you believe that, I need you to say this with me. I need you to say, after I say, "We are unstoppable. Another world is possible." Come on, we are unstoppable. Another world is possible. A little louder. We are unstoppable. Another world is possible. Okay, we are unstoppable. Another world is possible. That's good, because it doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be like this. Sing it, St. Paul. It doesn't have to be like this. Come on, come on. It doesn't have to be like this. Sing it like you mean it. It doesn't have to be like this. A little louder. It doesn't have to be like this. Even louder. It doesn't have to be like this. One more time. It doesn't have to be like this. Now, today, another world is possible. Today. Let's try that again. Today, another world is possible. One last time. Today, another world is possible. Because it doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to be like this. Everybody over here. It doesn't have to be like this. Just this side. It doesn't have to be like this. Keep that going. It doesn't have to be like this. This side, get ready. Today, it doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be like this. You can nod your heads. It doesn't have to be like this. 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 Everybody, today. That sounds beautiful.
Our reading this morning is Hope is the Thing with Feathers by Emily Dickinson. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tunes without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me.
We have had a whole bunch of wonderful versions of the idea of hope. Here is another one. It comes as a Taoist story from China with a profound lesson for us all. Once upon a time, there was a Chinese farmer who had a horse and a little land and a family to feed. He was poor, but he had enough. He had his oldest son to help out with the work, and he had that horse. So he managed barely, as long as most things went pretty well. But one day, someone left the barn door open, and the horse who was their only means of running the pump and plowing the field and riding to town, the horse ran away. When news of this event got out, the neighbors came over to commiserate. "Oh, how awful that your horse ran away," they said. "How will you manage? What will you do? Your life is ruined." But the farmer was a philosophical sort. He answered his neighbors, "Well, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, who knows?" Well, lo and behold, the next day, the horse came back from the forest with several wild female horses in tow. This made for quite a bounty. And when news of this miracle came about, the neighbors all came around again to see the new horses and to congratulate the farmer. "You have it made in the shade," they said happily. "You are a rich man." And the farmer, though, he was a philosophical sort. And you know what he said? He said, "Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, we'll see." Well, the next day, the farmer's oldest son went out to the corral to try and break in the new horses, train them to bit and bridle, make them more useful. And one of the horses kicked the boy and broke his leg. Neighbors all came around to help with casseroles and commiseration. "Oh, this is terrible," they said. "Broken legs never really knit correctly. He could be crippled for life." And all the farmer could say, "Well, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, we'll see." And the neighbors went away, shaking their heads. Well, a week later, a war broke out, and the emperor's soldiers came looking for conscripts. And of course, they passed up the farmer's son with the broken leg, but all the other young men in the village were forced to go with them, maybe never to return. After the soldiers had left town, the neighbors crept up to the farmer's house to congratulate him on his good luck. But the farmer said, "Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, we'll see." Well, the story could go on forever, of course, but I think you get the idea. And of course, this doesn't mean that gift horses are not to be celebrated and that broken legs should be taken with the utmost seriousness. When we say maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, we're not really talking about the obvious and the immediate, but rather we mean that the future is vast, that we can't know what good will come from the bad or what bad will come from the good. We also don't always know for sure if the judgments we've made about good and bad are accurate in any way. Everything changes. That's as true of modern American elections as it is of once upon a time Chinese farmers. Taoism, you may remember, is the home of the yin-yang sign. This figure, which is called the Tai Chi, like the exercise Tai Chi, consists of two nested fish figures in opposite colors, forever swimming around each other within the circle, and always with a dot of the opposite color within each. This is a profound symbol of hope. It reminds us that things are always changing, that there are no absolutes, that we must always remember that there is light in the darkness and always darkness in the light, that all opposites entail each other. What is a good person but a bad person's teacher, reads one verse of the Tao Te Ching. And what's a bad person but a good person's job? I found this a hard week to be thinking and writing about hope, frankly. Although I had kept up my hope through the election cycle so far and celebrated many of the results, the things I felt I had lost seemed heavy and worrisome, and the uncertainty of the week had threatening overtones. Hope, this tiny feathered bird that Emily Dickinson says perches in the soul, flew away a few times last week for me, maybe for you too. I am by disposition an optimist. That is, it's part of my psychological makeup to see the good side of things and the big picture and the long haul. I feel lucky that way. Studies show that optimists are happier, although pessimists are more often right. Optimism and pessimism seem to be mostly inborn traits. They know that by studying twins who were raised apart. But they are also partially based on a person's life experiences and their mood. Neither is better. Extreme optimism can be cockeyed, leading to some dysfunctional inability to deal with the world as it is. We've seen some of that lately. While pessimists are apparently more accurate in imagining the future, extreme pessimism is a misery to the pessimists and all those around them, and that can lead to dysfunctional decisions as well, and a constrained, risk-averse life. Are you an optimist or a pessimist by nature? It's important to know ourselves so we can take our natural inclinations in hand when necessary and modify our behavior when we need to. So although they are not universally agreed on definitions here, optimism and pessimism are usually used to denote overall assessments of the world and one's future prospects, while hope tends to be our attitude towards things that are more concrete and immediate. I am optimistic about the long arc of history bending towards justice. We can talk about that, but I doubt that you'll sway me. I seem to have that faith burned into my soul. I hope that we'll have a wet winter in our drought-ridden state. And I hope that this election will be settled in a way that most people can believe is accurate and just. I no longer hope that we will have a united nation anytime soon. I'm sad about that, but I think I'm realistic. You'll have your own assessments about all those things. We could talk about it, and I might even change my mind if you had enough facts and statistics and examples on your side. So let's talk about hope. There are two kinds of hope: hope the emotion, and hope the spiritual discipline. The hope you have after winning a crucial election, for instance, as conservatives felt 4 years ago and as liberals felt last Saturday, that was hope the emotion. It was a great feeling that we get when things are going our way, when victory is in the air, when life is looking better all the time. That kind of hope comes with falling balloons and rising butterflies and the cheers of the crowd. What fun it is to say, "See, we were right," and "See, the nation is filled with people who agree with us. See, the future is bright." That kind of hope is a very good thing. It's not necessarily gloating, although it feels like that to the losers and therefore is best celebrated with one's compatriots. But it's still an important celebration. Life is so often hard. Decisions in this red and blue nation go so often against what we want and think is fair that we should revel in that kind of hope and remember it. If you're filled with that emotion, hope, go for it. Cherish it. There's a second kind of hope, not the kind that celebrates clear skies ahead, but the kind that's determined to keep on moving forward. In the book Moby Dick, the main characters are out on a small boat away from their main ship, and a storm suddenly blows up and blows them apart from each other, even from visual contact with their mates and their only lifeline. To try to shout, writes Melville, would be as futile as shouting into the chimney of a roaring furnace. The winds and waves are so high that bailing the boat is pointless. The oars, he writes, are useless as propellers, performing now the office of life preservers. Furthermore, it is getting dark. They have a lantern, and after many attempts, it is lighted and handed to a man to hold aloft on a stick, to give their shipmates a way to find them. Watching him, the narrator comments that he was holding up that imbecile candle in the heart of that almighty forlornness. There, then, he sat, the sign and symbol of a man without faith, hopelessly holding up hope in the midst of despair. Whoa, maybe things aren't quite as bad as we thought they were. That kind of hope asks a great deal of us. It asks us to put aside what we are feeling, which is despair, to do the work of hope anyway, because, well, there's no other option. Because if we're going down, we want to at least go down fighting. Because unlikely as the thing we hope for might be, if it's going to happen, we want to be a part of the solution and not a part of the problem. That kind of hope is not a good feeling. It is a job description. And that kind of hope is based on faith. We UUs are heretics about other people's faith, but we have plenty of faith of our own, and therefore we can do the work of hope. Since it's easy to lose sight of both faith and hope, we need to be reminded about how this works. Here are some of the things many UUs have faith in. We have faith in the basic goodness of life now. We have hope that the future will also contain its share of goodness. We have faith in the power of love. We look to a future in which love in some form will be a part of our lives. We have faith in democracy. For all its flaws, we have faith that it is the most just kind of government and the one most likely to yield the greatest good for the greatest number. And we hope, therefore, that it continues to do that into the future. We have faith in a divine power of healing and renewal that works for good in our lives, many of us, and we know that somehow that will be manifest in our future as well as in our present. We have faith in the arc of the universe that bends towards justice, in that magnificent phrase of Martin Luther King Jr., lifted from 19th century Unitarian minister William Ellery Channing. Therefore, we work with that arc. I think that most of us would say we do have faith in at least some of those things: the goodness of life, the efficacy of democracy in producing justice, the universe bending towards justice. None of these concepts are proven or provable, and any one of them could be called into doubt with the help of any day's newspaper. These are articles of faith and watchwords of our lives, not facts and figures, sometimes not even noticeable trends. Still, we believe, and therefore we hope. When we extend our belief into the future, that's our hope. This kind of hope is not a feel-good emotion. It's a work, a practice, a discipline. The kind of discipline that, even when there is no rescue in sight, fumbles with the matches and lights the lantern. In Christian wisdom, hope is called a virtue. That is to say, not a lucky trait of personality that some people have and some don't, but a thing that's practiced, a thing that's prayed for, a thing you just do. Here's some of the practices of hope, the virtue, for use after you lose elections, or when it's time to start a new election, when you face terrible news, when grief strikes. They're even useful while enduring depression. First of all, be rigorously rational, or as the Black activist Amy quoted earlier calls it, take an unvarnished view of reality. Our too hopeful minds can lead us down some garden paths if we are not honest with ourselves. Our hopeless minds tell us that we are doomed or alone or unloved, when that is never completely true. This is the wisdom of the Chinese farmer. He knew that the horse, while important, wasn't the only good thing in his life, just as he knew that wealth, as useful as it can be, is not the only good thing in his life. And that gave him the emotional stamina to live through life's ups and downs. The unvarnished view of reality is not shiny, but it goes deep. The second discipline of hope, therefore, is to not believe everything that comes into our heads, not to mention everything we read on social media. We have to think for ourselves. We have to know the ways we're likely to kid ourselves and lean away from those. We have to remember not to follow the mob on the street or the mob on Facebook. We need to remember to research things that are too good to be true, and those things that are so outrageous that we ought to suspect that the writer has an agenda. We don't want to waste our hope on rumors. And if we need to succumb to despair, at least let's make it a real one. The third discipline of hope in these oh-so-connected days is to remember always that we are pretty much at the mercy of a media which stays alive by attracting our attention and feeding our fear. And that's all of them, even your beloved NPR, although they do keep the volume moderated. So turn it off. If you get your news only once a day or once a week even, you will remain an informed, responsible person. Always consider your sources. Choose and support your news media carefully. Fourth, get on with your life. 4 years ago, Garrison Keillor wrote in the Washington Post a mostly doom and gloom piece for liberals like us, as he said. And by that, he said, I mean libertarians, children's authors, yoga practitioners, Unitarians, bird watchers, people who make their own pasta, opera goers, grammar police, people who keep their books on their shelves, that bunch. Whew, he's got our number. He says, we liberals are so exhausted from thinking about this election, millions of people are going to take up leaf raking and garage cleaning with intense pleasure. Good idea, if you haven't done it already. Remember that it's true that we are better together, even if this miserable COVID has made that together virtual. Reach out to friends, log into church, proclaim a family night, make popcorn and cuddle. Pat the dog who is going bonkers, wondering what in the world is wrong with you. Strengthen your connections, watch your temper, smile at your neighbors and even the people on the street, and make it big enough that they can see it through the mask. Finally, remember your faith and your values and light a candle to see you and your boatmates through this hard time. Set your feet to quietly be a part of the solution rather than a part of the problem. Doing your bit for the arc of justice, even when it seems to be on an S curve. Love your neighbors, even when they disagree with you. Act on your faith, because that's where your hope comes from. Last summer, when I heard that our elections clerk needed hundreds of new election workers to replace her mostly elderly stalwarts, who very rightly felt that working the polls would be dangerous for their health this year, I thought I should probably volunteer. I believe in free and fair elections and in voter access and making the process work. Time to act on my beliefs. I signed up, got trained, and by the way, if you ever meet someone who doubts election integrity, suggest that they be trained to be a poll worker. The safeguards and systems they have in place are very impressive. I picked up my safety equipment and steeled myself for a long day of Oh, we didn't really know what that day would be like. But my experience was, it seems, not so different from almost every place. People were glad to be voting. Lots of new voters nervously learned the ropes. Everybody wanted their I voted sticker. 1 in 1,000 people refused to wear a mask. Lines were modest, problems were solved. The voting population was very diverse and very mixed where I was. No problem. Civility, accuracy, justice reigned. It was hard to believe that my polling place was in the same nation as the one I'd seen on the news. It was an experience that fueled my hope for the greatness of America. In that little lifeboat, in the midst of our raging storm, everybody was pulling together for democracy. Even if the day had been ugly, though, the fact that I was doing what needed to be done for my country would have brought me a glimmer of hope. With apologies to Emily Dickinson, that little bird of hope does ask for something of us. She asks to be fed. So let's feed her with our closing hymn, Keep on Moving Forward.
So Keep on Moving Forward is by Pat Humphreys of Emma's Revolution. And I thought about leading it to encourage you all to sing, but instead I'd like to share a wonderful video that Emma's Revolution created for the UU General Assembly in May. It features that duo of Pat and Sandy that lead that group, and also Melanie DeMore and the percussionist Robin Berdulis. So please feel free to sing along.
Gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. Sigamos adelante, siempre adelante, siempre adelante. Sin volver atrás. Gonna keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Never turning back. Never turning back. Amaremos con pasión. Siempre con pasión. Siempre con pasión, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna reach across our borders, reach across our borders, reach across our borders. Never turning back, never turning back. Vivamos sin fronteras, siempre sin fronteras, siempre sin fronteras, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna reunite the family, reunite the family, reunite the family. never turning back, never turning back. Familias reunidas, siempre reunidas, siempre reunidas, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna keep on moving forward, keep on moving forward, keep on moving forward, never turning back, 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 never turning back.
Peace.
We love you.
Such incredible music today. Thank you so much to the choir and to Benji for that. All right, so before our closing words, we'd like to invite you to coffee hour after the service, where we'll meet in a large group and then break out into smaller groups. The links will be posted in the chat, and we'll have them on the final slide as well. Visitors, we hope you'll join us. We are a friendly bunch. We also have a coffee hour just for our children and their families, and you'll see the link for that in the chat as well. And just a reminder to please check in with yourselves and to check in with each other.
A prayer of hope for you. May that little bird of hope perch in your soul, sing beautifully, and keep you warm. And may you, for your part, find the ways to bring your faith into the future, never turning back. Amen. And every blessing to you all.